I'd like you to comment, if you would, on your solution to the huge debt and this hugely growing deficit that we have, in specifics in terms of your comments on control of the budget and, on the other end of it, tax policy.
Well, first of all, you stop printing money. That's number one. Number two is, if we're all tightening our belts, then we need to start having the federal government tighten its belt. If you've heard me speak, some of the things that we've already got something in law. The Farm Bill 2008 allowed states, municipalities, or communities to actually adopt their own food stamp program. Tell me what's on the WIC diet that can't be on the food stamp diet. Nothing. Start by example. Skinny it down. Let's get it all on the WIC diet. That should save a whole bureaucracy. But what we have to do, it shows an example of what we have to do with government to make sure that we're not having duplicity. And it goes from our healthcare system, that goes from food, that goes to our transportation. We have to have line item aspects or control over the money. So that's the first thing. Tax. Well, first of all, in this quarter, we're not going to get a lot of tax reform. We need the president's office to be able to pass something through. But I think it has to have a unified form. It's just, first, as a small businessman, you only can print so much money. You have to have a budget. Put the budget, balance it, start looking at what you can actually afford to do. That's the first thing.
And next is Joe Dershevsky, and I'm going to ask you guys to stay back here. You're making me nervous because this court isn't that long.
In regard to your question, we need a plan. We have to, if you froze spending, I'm not even talking about a cut. If you just got to Washington and said, hey, let's just have a freeze, that's like $800 billion. Why don't we start there with a freeze and then have a progressive plan to get to what they call a fair tax or a flat tax? Because right now, you have, as the president says, you have 47% of the population that doesn't have skin in the game. They don't pay taxes. When you have that many people on the payroll, it's hard to make a change. So what we have to do is have a plan. For example, Congressman Paul Ryan, he has a plan. We as Republicans have to start having a plan to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. Just not run around and get excited, but actually have a plan. And the first thing would be, let's just freeze spending. There's $800 billion right there. Thank you.
The United States government needs to go to a zero budget. Every year they don't go down to zero. They stay where they are, and it actually adds 10%. And so when they tell you we've cut the budget by 7%, what they're really telling you is we increased the budget by 3%. If you go to a zero budget, you can start solving a lot of the problems to begin with. Secondly, don't spend what you don't have, period. It doesn't get any easier than that. And as far as the taxes go, as far as funding, we need to seriously look at the tax structure in America. The progressive income tax is a failing plan. It was a failing plan from the beginning, but when they started it in 1913, they put the snowball at the top of the hill. Well, now it's at the bottom of the hill, and it's a heck of a lot bigger than we ever thought it was going to be. The problem got bigger. You have to look at a bunch of different tax methods. The flat tax and the fair tax are two different styles of taxation. And I do not have enough time in 2 minutes to tell you which one is good, which one's bad, what's good about them, what's bad about them. But sir, I'm available afterwards, and I will explain the fair tax to everybody in the room. It'll take me about 10 minutes to explain it to you, and I'd be more than happy to do that. Change the tax structure in America. If people start having to buy it, people will start caring about how it's spent. People have to fund the government, they'll start caring how the government spends their money. And don't spend what you don't have. Thank you.
The very first thing that can be done, it needs to be done, has to happen to help our economy, is we've got to seal the border. Number one, we've got to seal the border. That's going to help healthcare, that's going to help education, that's going to help law enforcement, it's going to help everything. And the money that is being spent on that, number one, that can be stopped instantly, and that's a quick fix. It's not going to solve all of our problems, but certainly that has to happen up front. Beyond that, as we look at longer-term solutions, how many departments do we now have in the U.S. in the federal government? Exactly. I mean, it's out of control. These departments that are designed allegedly to, well, I don't even know what they're designed for. Let's look at the Department of Energy as a, for instance, to decrease our dependence on foreign oil. Well, it hasn't worked so well in 30 years. So all of these, with these bloated budgets increasing every year, just self-propagating departments, they need to go. I'm not going to be so naive as to say we wave a wand and they go away. That would be lovely if we could, but the reality is they need to at least be stopped, and the process needs to be shrunk. As far as taxation, we're already taxed too much. Taxing is not going to solve this problem. Changing tax may help, but the bottom line is we need to stimulate our economy. We need to generate more revenue as a country, and the way we do that is by stimulating the economy, and we don't stimulate the economy by raising taxes. So those are the three things that I would say that we could do in relatively short order. There's obviously lots of areas that we could spend, but seal the border, decrease the size of the departments, and stimulate the economy.
Yeah, my mom's 93, she lives down in Mayor, and she says if you don't have it, don't spend it. And don't go anywhere unless you have the money, and don't buy anything unless you can afford it. And again, I think they've gone way over. The other day I heard on C-SPAN, we had Ann Kirkpatrick was on there. She was trying to get more money, a full amount of money for the Native American rights in central Arizona. Basically, a few other people protested. Still, the Democrats voted yes for it and gave a ton of money. And they wanted to negotiate, but the Democrats wouldn't hear it. Again, it's just way out of control. Just like Moses said, set our people free. We need help. We need to get in there and can have control of how we spend our money, just like my mom said. I said, Mom, should we even tax anything to try to raise more money just to pay the bills that we're already in debt in? She said, no. In the last 90 years, she said, don't raise taxes. Don't give them to Caesar unless you absolutely have to. And that's what we need to do. Get our budget back in balance and follow my mom's principles.
There's a document called the Constitution. And in that document, it gives enumerated powers of government and a strict appraisal of every department, of every action of the government, and making sure that it is one and covered by one of the enumerated powers would be a great way to initially evaluate what needs to come and what needs to go. When you have the bloated, as we've all said and as we all agree, the bloated oligarchy basically that we've developed and these massive departments, the structure will not correct itself unless a group of elected individuals can form as a block, be the leverage vote to stop the not only earmarks, but the appropriations process in the House. It will not stop until it crashes. Look at the opportunity we have here in Arizona. When I was in the legislature, I was the appropriations chairman, and we balanced our budget. We left that for a young lady named Janet Napolitano. And she took 3 or 4 rhinos, I'll call them, Republicans in name only, teamed those up with her Democrats, and ran through a budget that has put us in a huge hole. But now that we've crashed, it has given an opportunity to cut. We haven't crashed at the federal level because they can print. But ultimately, someone will not loan us the money. There will not be a backing. Now, do we want to wait for that? No. So, because when that happens, there's going to be a big stop. It's going to be a big crash. And frankly, that may be the only way to stop the profligacy. But in the meantime, reappraise and absolutely cut the corruption of earmarking out of government, because that is so corrupting and adds so much to our total bill. So those are things that I would focus on.